Hey everyone, welcome to the Ganjha show. Our guest for the day is Jeffrey Graham, who is a former director at Google and Blackrock, and also VP at Twitter and NorCal Cannabis. Now he's the founder of Pistil Data, a secret weapon for cannabis sales team. Welcome Jeffrey to the show. Happy to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah, I was just watching one of your videos on YouTube. It was, I think, a keynote speech for graphics and geeks, something like that. And
Uh-huh.
you were just talking about how you jumped from BlackRock, totally sad or whatever, let's say, old industry to cannabis. How did that work out?
How did it work out or why did it happen?
Both things. I mean, yeah. First of all, why did you decide to go to the cannabis industry from? Uh, yeah,
It's a great question. It's a great question. And they certainly are different experiences at BlackRock. We were wearing ties and I was flying to New York City every other week and from California. And it's a very formal environment, traditional environment in New York City finance.
yeah,
Uh, and the transition to the cannabis industry has been 100% positive from that perspective. It's much more comfortable to be able to be yourself and to be able to express yourself more freely and to just to be more comfortable. So the contrast is very big. Um, you know, I always have felt that cannabis has been misunderstood. There's been a lot of stigma, a lot of stereotypes about cannabis, to the point, obviously, of really dangerous and oppressive laws against people using cannabis and distributing cannabis, which have impacted millions of people in ways that are really unfair and unjust. And I've known from personal experience and from the research that has existed is that cannabis actually is a substance, a plant that gives people a lot of comfort, physical comfort, whether it's to deal with pain, to help them sleep,
yeah.
or just overall emotional comfort to deal with anxiety or depression. In fact, that's likely the reason why someone is using cannabis is to treat these types of things and to relax, which are obviously mixed in with these types of comfort. And I felt that cannabis was misunderstood, and there was an opportunity to be part of an industry which was going to be a transformation of the way that people understand the plant and the way that it's used, and then obviously the commercial aspect of that, which is intertwined. And I thought that it was going to be a very exciting adventure and create a lot of opportunity for people, and I wanted to be a part of it, and so that's why I jumped in.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, one thing that you talked about is the opportunity. You guys currently are serving the California market, I guess,
Yes.
and you are a data company. So, just talking about US, I mean, India, we just talk about it being a $25 billion industry where it's not even $1 million industry right now because the rules are quite vague and a lot of other things are there. But what about the potential? I mean, a lot of companies have already blown up in US and Canada, and they're also losing a lot of money. But what is the potential right now left in the cannabis industry in the US?
Hmm. So one of the things that the way that I envision this is thinking about all of the different industries and products that I think will be transformed by cannabis.
Hmm.
And when I say cannabis, I also mean cannabinoids, which are the components of cannabis, which
Yeah.
make their ways into all different types of products like beverages and edibles. So I think that cannabis will certainly be transformative in the um, alcohol beverage industry. There'll be a lot of replacement that I think is already happening, which I think will be healthy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's just beginning. I think there will be a transformation in the pharmaceutical industry where um, cannabinoids, as they're discovered and as they're researched, will be increasingly a part of the way people treat themselves. Um, so I think that Cannabis really is just at the beginning. And then when you start to think about the beauty industry and topicals and creams and the things that we transform by hemp. So I don't think of this industry as even close to, I wouldn't even call it immature. It's really just at the very, very beginning of the impact it's going to make.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a quite interesting point that you made. It won't be just the cannabis, like the plant in general, but even the cannabinoids will, make their way to different other products as well. One thing I think you were just mentioning again in uh, but some time back was the consumer insights that you get, and I think that was something that you mentioned inside your keynote as well. People think of cannabis consumers as a guy who's smoking some pot and playing Fortnite, and and you've worked in consumer insights for a long period of time, and now I think obviously the market is matured. What are the types of consumers that you see right now, and where do you thought that after coming from Blackrock you thought there's so many other types of people who want to consume cannabis, and like the totally different mind shift that happened for you?
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the reasons why we have a certain image of cannabis in our head and cannabis use in our head is because some types of consumption are public and sometimes some types of consumption are not public.
Yeah.
So the public type of consumption is maybe at a concert or, outside a nightclub. And so it's associated in our minds of, okay, recreational fun use, which
Hmm.
obviously that's a part. But then there's this whole this private consumption of maybe someone preparing a tea for themselves to go to sleep, or somebody treating their pain in the morning or people that are trying to deal with their anxiety or their depression through the plant. We don't see that, but that's actually a huge part of the consumption of cannabis. So 84% of people who consume cannabis in California use it to treat some type of physical or emotional symptom as part of their use. So it's very widespread. California is a market of there's 40 million people in California. It's probably the most mature market, mature large market in the United States. So we can use that as sort of an example. Um, so, I did research when I was at NorCal Cannabis to understand people who consume cannabis. Uh, we found that women were just as likely as men to consume cannabis. Um, that older people and younger people consume cannabis,
Yeah.
and people consume cannabis for a wide variety of reasons. So I know there are a lot of people playing Fortnite and using cannabis. That's true, but there are a lot of other people as well that are using the plant.
Yeah, I think with regards to older people, I mean, they were also young ones and they used to use pot before, but then they stopped because maybe age or the stigma behind it. Have you seen some people, I mean, coming back into the industry because it's been legalized now?
Yeah, I think that the large majority of the business is still uh, uh, in transformation. There's still people that have been using consistently,
Mm-hmm.
has been consuming consistently, because in California there has been access through the medical market for a long time.
Long time, yeah.
Um, I think there are people coming back in as it becomes more socially acceptable. I think that is true. It's hard to get data on that. Um, the large market share, the large dollar spends are people that have been using continually. But I'm sure that will change, particularly as new products appear that don't require combustion, don't require
Yeah.
smoking, which I think is a little bit of a barrier for some people, rightly so. So edibles, beverages, certainly topicals, pain relief, and things like that are a lower barrier for people to come back into that consumption.
Yeah, I think Can is one of the brands that has come into the beverage, CBD beverage industry, right? Are they based out
Yep.
of California?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think there was a lot of hype around them and a lot of investment also coming in. Um, yeah, I mean, just talking about from the perspective of, like I said before, there's has been so many companies that have gone now bust in general. So many companies in Canada, I think I have read more about Canada, so I know more about that. That they got a lot of investment, they went public, and now their shares are plummeting down. They're shutting out their warehouses, so many other things. Has that been a similar case in US?
Well, first of all, it may be obvious, but the relationship of someone's stock price and the
Mm-hmm.
actual demand and the maturity in the market, often those are completely separated.
Yeah.
GameStop being a great example.
Yeah.
GameStop didn't become 16,000% more valuable or have more customers over the course of 2 weeks than it did before. And I think that you see a similar um, type of separation in the market where stocks can go up and they can go down, but that's not changing the underlying you know dynamic within the market. So
Yeah.
I think it's a growing market. The one thing that's different about cannabis is that it's highly sensitive to regulation. So
Mm-hmm.
as things become more normalized and as cannabis becomes legal in more states and then ultimately federally, that will unleash the market quite a bit. And I think the stocks are very sensitive to that. In California, there have been swings up and down, particularly in the private investment market because there hasn't been that much public activity.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been people that have done really, really well in riding those swings up or riding those swings down. My main focus has been just what's actually happening in terms of the consumer and the products in the market, and that doesn't swing as much as the stock tickers.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the demand for the like for new products or even the old ones has been growing steadily in the US, especially during the lockdown. I mean, so many people were replacing alcohol consumptions by cannabis consumption because you ultimately have limited amount of money to spend on things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just talking about like the problems that you just mentioned. What were the problems that you saw while working at NorCal that you then decided to, then start Pistil Data?
hmm Well, I was hired at NorCal Cannabis as the head of business intelligence. My role was to help NorCal answer key strategic questions with data. Questions like what products should we create? How do we position our brands? How do we go to market with those brands? How do we convince retailers to stock those brands?
Yeah.
And as the head of business intelligence, my job was to answer those questions with data. And I looked around and found that there wasn't a lot of data. There wasn't a lot of data within the actual business because it was uh, all of these are basically startups, so it's often don't have mature data pipelines within the company. But
Yeah.
within the industry itself, there wasn't the type of data that I needed to help make those decisions. The data that was available wasn't comprehensive enough. It wasn't fast enough. It wasn't local enough, and it didn't have um, it wasn't tuned right for everybody in the organization to use it. So it really was out of that experience, which was we need better data and we need better tools that serve the purposes of helping people make decisions every day. That's when I founded Pistil Data.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the best things about that is you found a problem in the industry and then started, working on it with your past experience, which not a lot of people are doing. Like just talking about India, I mean, think a lot of people have just seen that some hemp products are coming in the market, so they just take that product and rebrand it from the same manufacturer and then just start selling it without any data. So I think that's one of the things that are really important. Yeah.
Yes,
Uh,
I
uh,
agree.
yeah, I just wanted to talk about the poster behind you. Is that something particular about the high times, or that's just a random
Yeah,
poster?
yeah, it's just it's a cover from High Times magazine. It's a kind of celebration of 25 years of the cannabis industry, and it kind of shows that the history of cannabis goes back very far in this country. It's not, it didn't pop up 2 years ago,
Yeah.
there's a deep culture of it and practice and expertise, and yeah, I guess that's why I keep it around.
Yeah, that's why I think one of the better thing about coming in the cannabis industry is you get to uh, have a more relaxed environment around you and get to meet so many great people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for being on the show. I mean, it was a lovely session talking to you. And Obviously, I mean, you shifting from Google, then Twitter to then something else, and then coming to cannabis is, I think, inspiration for a lot of people who are trying to enter the industry or whatever. Like, there can't be any stigma now because you came from, I think, Silicon Valley to this. And yeah, any last remarks for people why if they want to maybe start their own company now or get into the industry?
Well, you know, I got involved in the internet business in the late '90s, when there were there were still a lot of people thinking that it wasn't going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You know, I joined Twitter when still people were saying, "Oh, this is just something that people talk about what they had for breakfast."
Yeah.
Uh, and I kind of see cannabis in the same place where there's some people that see the future of cannabis and some people that don't. And I think that if you see it and you understand how important and transformational it will be, that you should believe it. And if you get involved, you work hard, you do what you say you're going to do, and really focus on building relationships and trying hard in the industry, I think there's going to be unlimited opportunity for people.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a big point. I mean, like you said, I it sounds ridiculous now, but people actually thought that internet won't be a thing anymore in the future, or maybe Facebook, Twitter, Instagram won't be a thing in the future. And now, I mean, these are the giants who are controlling so many things. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I think uh, it was great talking to you.
Nice to
Uh,
talk to you too. Thank you for your time.